Hey everybody, welcome back to another Volition stream. We are going to be taking a bit more of a detailed look into one of the developers we have here at the studio today. I'm Josh Stinson, the video editor here. I shouldn't slur my occupation here. But on the couch today we have...
I'm Damien Allen. I'm a principal designer here at Volition.
And once I get him up, we also have in the control room over there...
Hey everybody, Mike Watson here, Senior Community Developer for Volition. I'll be moderating chat and answering all your questions, or trying to, or some of them.
Some of them at least. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, we've done a little bit of this in the past where we've kind of, maybe while showing off a game or something, talked to the developer about, what they do and, how they got into the whole games industry and stuff. We're going to talk to you about that, and we're also going to be playing a little bit later on one of the things he worked on, which is a thing that I'm going to guess the majority of people never knew existed, and it's super entertaining, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, first of all, how long have you been working?
I've been in the industry off and on for about 20 years, starting way back in '99. I worked on some of my first titles were NBA Jam 99 and Turok 2 on the PC.
Oh, nice.
So some interesting ports there. So that was back at Acclaim, now defunct studios, and they actually started off as Sculptured Software when I was there.
Okay, so when you were working on those, was that a developer or were you like a tester back then?
I was a tester. Actually, my dad happened to work with one of the artists there, and he said, hey, I can help your son get his foot in the door. I always wanted to be in games. It's been a passion of mine ever since I was young. So I was 13, I wanted to be a designer.
Yeah.
And back then, there wasn't really... a great path, an easy path to be in design, and so I thought, hey, I'll start, right out of high school, start testing, and so that was where I got my initial foot in the door, and that was just a temp position. But so after I worked on those titles, I was actually out of the industry for a couple of years.
Okay, so going from So you sent me an email just listing all the stuff you worked on, and it's not even including the stuff that you just tested on. It's a long list, and that struck me as interesting just because it's I feel now if somebody in the modern industry were to list what they've worked on, it's not nearly as many because it's every game you work on for 4 years now or something. So when you worked on those earlier, because you had more than a dozen things as a designer. Were you working start to finish on all those things, or were you hopping around?
Some of them, I would get part of the project, like some of the games on the system we'll talk about later. I came in to sort of push them through to the end. Some of them, I was there from start to finish. But titles back then, especially on systems like the DS or the PlayStation Portable, they didn't have nearly as long of a dev cycle, or you would get to a point where it was just a lot of bug fixing, and the input that I had in on the game wasn't as much depth needed in that time, and so it would be a lot of programmers or testers going back and forth, and I may have to change some values or things like that. But for the most part, it was going to be done, and I'd be shifting over to other projects and helping with those projects too.
Okay. Did that help keep things more interesting, going that quickly, or was it sometimes you just wish you could just work on one thing?
Back then, I always wished I could work on one thing from start to finish, because someone would come in with an initial pitch design, or I wouldn't be part of the pitch presentation, and they'd say, "Here's your project, work on this." And it's fun. It's always a new thing to do. You're puzzle solving. You're trying to come up with fun, unique ways to make whatever the subject matter is enjoyable for both yourself and for the players. But sometimes you think, I wish I could have made this change early on or that change early on, and maybe make that decision or help make that decision to put us on a better trajectory, or at least what I thought was a better trajectory.
So, working as a a designer, is it like, because I know that there are some studios, especially now, where it's, a studio makes even if they're not working on the same franchise or IP, they make a certain type of game. When you're a designer, do designers ever get like typecast, I guess, as like, I'm a designer for these types of games? Or is, like, if you're a designer for one thing, does that carry over to like, I can design a different genre of game? Or are those like different challenges?
I think there's multiple ways to answer that question. The first studio I was at, when I started in design, they would take a lot of licensed products. And so you would have to be adept at saying, I can make this type of game or that type of game. I worked on Capcom Puzzle World, which was a reimagining or basically a port of the Buster Brothers games and Puzzle Fighter on the PSP. And so a lot of that was breaking down the game, the other versions, and then helping make sure that we remade it in a way that was faithful to the original but looked a little bit better.
Right.
I worked on Monopoly, Boggle, Yahtzee, Battleship, and on that one, it was really more about making sure that we stayed within the franchise. So as you're working on different titles, you say, okay, well, what can I do to make this fun, make this enjoyable? And so at that studio, I got a lot of breadth.
Yeah.
Since then, I think that studios now take a lot more time on a project. They take a lot more work to get AAA and even AA and indie games take a lot more work, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so there are skills you can learn that would benefit other projects of the same sort. But I think design in general, you learn a language. Depending on which aspect of design, you can be much more focused now than you could before.
Yeah.
Depending on that aspect of design, you may become more comfortable in saying, I just want to focus on this aspect or that aspect.
Okay. Huh. So you said you tested Turok. Turok 2?
Turok 2 on the PC specifically.
On the PC.
Yes.
Okay. Oh man, so a PC port, because, Turok was a console first game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was an N64 game.
How hard was it to work on a PC port of a console game back in like the late 90s? That seems, because I remember lots of PC ports not being great for a long time, especially if they're, console to PC.
Yeah, that definitely was the case there. I remember, Turok is really well known for having this wall of fog that's just seems like a few feet in front of you.
Yeah.
And Turok 2 was no different, especially, and it was the same engine essentially on the PC. They did add for some unique maps that were PC specific, but there were only a couple of those. And it had some unique challenges on the PC version because things could get lost in between, the space in between. So if I could see you and you could see me, a bullet or a rocket would hit each other. But we could get far enough away from each other where somehow that rocket would get lost in the soup in between and it wouldn't actually hit.
Weird.
So that was an interesting part about it. The fact that for me working on it, it was one of the first games I had where it was text to speech. So you would, when you chat, you could set it up so you would send a chat to someone and it would actually speak over their PC. So most people would spend most of the time trying to phonetically swear as much as they could.
Yeah.
Because it was not a good text-to-speech editor.
Was it like...
system.
I'm trying to remember the name of it because I was watching a video of this recently, actually, for some reason. Basically, it was a video talking about like the creation of text-to-speech, and it was the voice that was used for like tons of stuff forever. Like it was like the actual system. It's still used in some stuff. It's not the Stephen Hawking voice, even though it sounds pretty similar to it. It was like Johnny Five's voice in that movie.
Yeah, it was very
like that?
robotic. It was really about having fun to try and see it, make it say the words how you would say them.
Yeah.
But it looked horribly in the text. It didn't make any sense from a spelling point of view.
Okay, because it's still funny. I still feel like there are some games that use like that exact same like voice protocol. Like I don't know if you've ever seen Moonbase Alpha. I think.
Not familiar with that one.
It's like a multiplayer. I think it's moon-based alpha. Like a multiplayer game where you're like all astronauts like on the moon building a base and stuff, and it has text to speech, and like there's tons of videos of people just like typing the dumbest crap in there. And it's like you could type in a bunch of like scripting in there in the text, and it would change the voice based on scripting. And I don't even know if that was like intentional, but it had a great way of saying John Madden. It was like John Madden. But anyways, I just got reminded of that. I love that video. We have a question from Cradon Moore, I think that's how you pronounce it, in the chat. I would be interested to know how a designer thinks AI and bots may play a role in level design in the future.
That's a good question. I think that any way that we can use machine learning to help us make a breadth of content is a good thing. And I've seen videos recently of the AI taking a 2D image and turning it into a 3D face.
Oh yeah.
And that's pretty cool. But I think there's room for all of this. Sometimes you want a really focused, design-driven experience, and other times you want to create chaos, and the location the specifics of the location don't matter as much as the experience that you're creating on top of that.
Okay. Also, we have another question from a former designer here, Xavier Porter. He asks, he wants to ask you if being principal means you are truly his pal.
Yes, now we can finally be pals. I thought we were before, but I guess now that I can.
Also, hi, Xavier. It's cool that he's in the chat. Xavier's a cool dude. Again, like, I just keep thinking about how you worked on Turok 2, because I played a lot of the first Turok.
Yeah.
So you said that like there's that issue with stuff just kind of getting lost, like rocks and stuff. Was that a thing that got fixed? Like, was the fog still there in the PC version?
Yes, very much so. In fact,
was it just like a thing you couldn't get rid of?
It was part of the engine. It was really part of the engine. It was interesting because I was testing. I was specifically focused on multiplayer testing. I don't think I actually ever beat Turok 2.
Okay.
Ever. I beat Turok 1 on the N64, played it a ton. I remember reading about it in magazines at the time and being, it sounds so cool. And then I got there and got to play it, and I just wasn't that interested. Plus, the frame rate on the testers' PCs back then was so abysmally bad that I would get motion sickness every day.
Oh, geez.
And so I would try and get there early enough to get a PC that was fast enough that wouldn't make me sick.
Oh, man.
But I started, to work there. One story I remember from that time that I thought was funny was we would get builds of the N64 version in.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first games at the time that was going to use the expansion pack. The memory pack, and it was mostly for, if I remember right, it was you could play the whole game without it, but if you wanted to go in high resolution mode of maybe 240 by 480, you could use the expansion pack. And I happened to be with some fellow devs at a store, and we were talking to a person trying to get us to purchase Turok 2 to pre-order it, and they were explaining to us how you had to buy the expansion pack to play the game, and we tried to explain to this person that no, you don't have to buy the expansion pack to get play the final game, and he said, no, Nintendo told me this, and I thought, okay, well, we are working on the product just down the road, so I know for a fact because I've pulled the expansion pack out to try it, and it worked. So, and it did ship like that. But I always thought that was funny how sometimes having that inside information and talking to people, how there can be the disconnect, even at that early stage.
That reminds me like of a story I've heard about that expansion pack thing. I don't know if you've heard this before. I think like the first game to use it may have been Donkey Kong 64.
That or Zelda. It's one of the two.
I think Donkey Kong 64 came out first, but apparently the like days before like the game went gold, it still had like this really hard to track down bug where it would just hard crash for no reason. And the reason why it did come out first because that game shipped with the memory pack, and that was entirely because it was a RAM issue. The game would hard crash because there wasn't quite enough RAM if you let it run long enough. So it's just like instead of fixing it, they just shipped it.
I'm sure that was an expensive mistake.
Yeah, and like it completely fixed it because it had no RAM. Oh man, but. So yeah, after you moved on from testing, so this thing we have over here, we're going to switch to in a little bit. Is that the first thing you worked on as designer?
No, actually, after I was working at Acclaim, I was no longer in the industry for a couple of years.
Okay.
And my best friend at the he was at the time was a manager of a business complex. He was in charge of that. And he said, "Hey, have you heard of this studio? They're a video game studio. They're there." I said, "No, but get me in contact with them." And to give you an idea, he gave me which would be my Kulas's number.
Okay. Yeah.
And I cold called him and asked for a job. And he said, "Okay, well, we don't just give jobs to people who cold call."
Please.
But that got my foot in the door.
All right.
And I actually initially applied to be an artist because I had done some art in school. Looking back now and seeing the skill of the artists that are in the games industry, I know that was not the right path for me. But he did say we don't hire designers directly with no experience, understandably. And there wasn't really any design tracks at schools back then. So I started as a tester there. So I went from test to test.
Okay.
And I tested a couple games there. Snowcross 2 featuring Blair Morgan.
Yeah.
So that was one of my first games I tested on. Then I did a design test at work and started working. The system we are going to show in a little bit, I started working on a couple years, about a year later.
Okay.
But before then, the first game I actually got to cut my teeth on as a designer was Tom and Jerry game. And it was a DS game. And that one was a challenging game. The game itself was a QuickTime event, the entire game.
Really?
And yeah, the entirety of the game was, and because of that, all of the memory for the game went to animation.
Right.
And because it was a 3D game, and we literally didn't really have any more room on the cartridge because they didn't want to pay for a bigger cartridge.
Right, yeah.
But the game could be beaten in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Under an hour.
Okay.
And the publisher came in and said, "This is not good enough. This is what we had pitched. This is what we wanted to do." The other designers on the project, I came on a little bit later, and they said, "Okay, well, we need to make some kind of replayable, challenge modes."
Right.
And the mode I was given was a mode where you would fly around with a jetpack on and fly through some rings.
Okay.
So this was my first attempt at okay, now I get to actually create stuff in it. I was really excited.
Yeah.
But engines back then weren't always the best. To give you an idea of the challenge of making this system work, so the path the character would follow was a spline, and that was you could only see that spline in Maya.
Okay.
You couldn't see it in the editor, so you could not see the path where it went. However, all of the rings you had to go through, you could only see in the editor, and you couldn't see the spline in there. And when you'd place an object in the world, it would always appear at the origin, 0, 0, 0. So you'd have to move it in space and figure out where it went. And the final kicker was it had no mouse support. I had to place all the objects, move the camera around the world and everything with just keyboard support, like playing original Doom style, moving the camera around, page up, page down.
So it was, oh my God. So working on that game, so it's like if you wanted to change the path, you had to change it in Maya?
Yeah, change it in Maya, export it, then I'd have to go in the game and load it and fly through after I'd crunched the level, and then see if I could touch the ring that I had placed in the space.
Yeah.
So I would get values in Maya and then put those in the game world and move them.
Yeah.
But since you could only move left and right a certain distance, I had to make sure it was within that range.
Man.
I remember going to the lead programmer at the time and asking specifically, can we get mouse support? And he was busy and working on other things, and he just said, no.
Yeah.
So That was my first real dive into to actually creating stuff. And engines and editors have gotten much better since then. Even at the studio, it improved a lot after that point. But that was definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I've always wondered like what engines and tools for light were like for like the DS and stuff, because it just seems like it was such a peculiar, because it's like something from that far ago that did 3D graphics on a portable system. It just seemed like it was probably very difficult to wrangle that.
Yeah, it was challenging from a creation point of view, but it was also challenging from a limitation point of view, which is actually sort of a blessing in disguise, because it required you to really say, okay, I'm only going to put in the game what I think is best, and really get down to the essence of what was good. Because the DS had hard limitations on how many polys it could draw on the screen. Afterwards, it would just start dropping them, and you didn't have any control over which polys it would drop, so you just had to make sure you were always under the threshold. The amount of sprites that could be put on a single layer had to be very specific, otherwise it would start drawing black lines. So it had, I mean, it's a great little piece of hardware. 3D in your hands back then is awesome, but it definitely had some challenges as far as making the games work on that the smaller system.
Right. It just always struck me as a thing where it's like there was probably a tough balancing act, because it was such a limited system, like comparatively to what we have now.
Oh yeah. I remember working on the DS around the time the 360 came out, and just dreaming of working with that much RAM. And it just seemed like an impossibility to me at the time.
Yeah. Also, we have some questions from the chat wondering about your hat. Is that the AOM floor or the Saints Row floor?
It is the AOM floor.
And they want to know where you got it.
I got it from work. I purchased it when we had a chance to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's one of my favorite hats. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like a shirt, like 2 different shirts. I think we had a couple different AOM shirts, didn't we? Yeah, but that's the thing we do, like when we're, whatever game, we're working on, like, my impression at least is that even in, projects from even 10 years ago or something, there was generally like a store here where there were like shirts and hats and other stuff you could get for whatever game we were currently working on. But also, it's not something that we could buy. You know what? Maybe we should probably show it off at some point in the future when we talk about AOM again at some point. But there was like AOM cereal. Have you seen those?
Yes, I have seen those.
The cereal boxes are pretty great. We'll have to show that sometime.
One little side story. When I was working, I worked on Epic Mickey. And when I worked on Epic Mickey, we got the shirts that had what we called the Drippy Mickey before the game was even announced. We got it like a few days before the Game Informer article was going to come out announcing the game. And I asked for permission. I was like, can I wear this out in public? They said, yes, you can. You just can't talk about it.
Right.
And so I wore it out in public, and I went to a game store, and the clerk there was like, what is that shirt you're wearing? What is that from? And I just said, I can't say anything. If he had paid a little more attention, he would have noticed my jacket actually said the studio that I worked at.
Okay.
Yeah, I was playing a little fast and loose, but I definitely stayed within the letter of the law of not saying anything. So.
What studio was it that made... Because you worked on both Epic Mickeys, right?
Yes.
What studio was that? I forget what it was.
It's a studio called Junction Point. Unfortunately, they're no longer around. Those are the 2 products that we shipped. I was able to work with Warren Spector, who industry veteran, and a dream of mine to work with him. I remember being able to go through the interview process, and he was the first person I interviewed.
Oh, geez.
It was both overwhelming and exciting at the same time, so it was a great time working there.
That's cool. What was it like working in Epic Mickey? Because I'm sure that was like kind of like a bigger product, because both those were Wii games too, right?
Both of them were on the Wii, but then the Epic Mickey 2 is available on most things. 360, PS3, Wii U, Wii, even the PSP or PS Vita got a port of it.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Well, from the first moment I went in there and Warren showed the sort of the pitch to me, I was both super excited and super overwhelmed because, hey, this is Mickey Mouse. This is Disney. You know, they make quality products. They make stuff that lasts literal generations or across generations. And this is their flagship character. And not only that, but it was bringing back Oswald the Lucky Rabbit into Disney's fold. And so I remember him explaining the whole concept to me, and I just thought, that is incredible, and wow, that is overwhelming. How am I going to be part of it? I hope I get to be part of it, but how would I be able to be part of this awesome venture?
I'm curious, when you saw the whole pitch for the first Epic Mickey, was that like early enough that it had that concept art that's been shown around, like when it was first announced, that was like really like, it was almost like kind of like steampunky looking?
It was a little bit beyond that point. That was in the design doc that I've seen. But when I saw it, it was right about the time they were doing sort of the vertical slice pitch. And so I saw some early video, and then I got to play around in the level that was created. That they were still exploring a lot with the whole paint and thinner mechanic and what that could bring to games, and how do we approach it from do you have unlimited? Do you have only a certain amount? Can you paint yourself in a corner? How can you get yourself out? All these design challenges, but also how to make that be a creative endeavor for the player too.
Okay, man. So, Epic Mickey. So, okay, in the timeline of stuff you worked on, there was Epic Mickey. The thing we're going to look at was before that, right?
Yes.
Okay. After Epic Mickey, did you come here?
Epic Mickey 1 and 2, yes, I worked on both of those titles. And then a friend of mine from high school that I've worked with at both Junction Point and here, we've both in the industry for a while, he said, hey, we're looking for designers here. I think you'd be a good fit. I had played the Saints Row franchise in the past. I played Red Faction in the past. I had played Descent way back in the day. And I said, okay, it's a studio. I think it'd be a good place to go. And so right near the Epic Mickey was essentially done. And I said, okay, I think it's time for my family and I to make the move. And so I came and I started working on Saints Row 4.
So that was your first project here?
Project here, yeah. Okay. Saints Row 4. A little bit over a year, I think, before we shipped.
Okay.
So I was a mission designer, able to work on a series of missions in the game, including the one that was banned in Australia.
You worked on that one, all right.
Yes, I was. I was born in Australia, so I always thought that was funny that was the mission I was working on. No, I no longer have an accent, of course.
Yeah.
So Saints Row 4 I worked on, the Saints Save Christmas DLC, and then on to AOM. So,
what did you work on specifically on AOM?
On AOM, internally we called it Dungeon Designer. The Legion layers is the mechanism we had for having semi-procedural content where we could get in and fight Legion in these underground layers in the city. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Spies Like Us.
I haven't actually.
It's a classic sort of spy comedy movie, but there's a scene in there where the main characters they go into this I believe it's a movie, like a drive-in theater in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they're told to get a drink, and all of a sudden they're transported down into a secret base. And so that was sort of the one of the inspirations for that was there could be entrances anywhere, and it would look very innocuous, but if you did the secret, you could get into the lair.
Right.
And it was a real fun system to work on. I think it was a fun technical challenge because we wanted to allow the player to get into these Legion layers from these locations in the city that they could stumble across. And have it be as seamless as possible. Early on, we explored having it be seamless both coming in and coming out of the Legion layer, and we decided that we would not do that for some technical reasons and some design decisions for that. But the whole idea is seamlessly opening up a place into the world under the city, essentially going down into it, and then fighting this series of challenges was something I was really excited about and I enjoyed working on.
So one thing I wanted to talk about with the dungeon stuff is that you had some bigger plans for those dungeons too. You were prototyping some stuff that didn't make it in. What was that going to be like?
The system that was built was insanely robust. It could go from every room, every objective, every enemy type, whether or not it had traps, being completely randomly chosen, procedurally, selected, to I want this room in this orientation with this set of guys with this objective, and then anything in between. So one room could have that, the next room could have something different, and so even from the base system, we had the ability to do a wide range of things. But one of the things that we never got to really explore, and we started exploring, was the idea that you could essentially go out of the dungeon. It would really be faked. You would have a skybox, you'd be out in the open, but it would allow you to traverse through maybe back alleys of the city that you couldn't get to normally, and feel like you're traversing in and out of a layer, into a space, and down into new spaces. The system, even though a lot of the rooms had a very Legion aesthetic to them, there are actually other parts in the game that are using this system that you just don't realize because we made them visually different and have you get into them in different ways.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Also, we have another question from Feared Symmetry asking, which mission from Saints Row 4 was your favorite?
Which mission was my favorite? To work on or to play?
Let's say to work on.
To work on. Probably the two Shondies mission. It was your both Shondies are sort of upset with each other and challenging each other, and you start racing back and forth. And it was a challenge to make the AI work, because you have a player that can leap massive distances, run faster than any car, and you want to have the AI running from the player, but be still visible to the player, and then be a challenge to chase there. So yes, if you're really good, you can sort of beat them there, but most players can't. And making sure that it felt like they were pulling you along, but at the same time that it wasn't just like, oh, I stopped for half a second, so they're already there. So that was a fun challenge for me to work on, and also beat my head against the wall a couple times as they didn't do what I wanted them to do sometimes, because in an open world, any type of open world simulation, that car that was there the first time is not there the next time, and now you have to be able to work within those bounds.
Yeah, it always, I encountered this too when I've done trailers and the tutorial banks and stuff for Agents of Mayhem and stuff, when I do video stuff for our projects. When you're trying to demonstrate a gameplay mechanic in a way that is easily visually understood in an open world game where anything can happen, that gets tough real quick, because it's every take is completely different. There's always half the time it's just okay, that was a great take, except for the car that ran me over in the last quarter second before the ability triggered all the way or something. It feels like, compared to other genres, that bit of unpredictability makes everything you do harder to get just right.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult because on one hand, especially in an open world game where we want to give the player freedom, you want to, if you can find those instances and if you can find a way to embrace them, then you want to do that. But you also have, I need the story or the gameplay beats to happen at this moment, So you have to, it's this push and pull system, but wherever possible, I think it's best if we do allow the player that, like, wow, I broke the rules of the game and did some creative, fun thing to get there.
That brings up something, because like in the past I've talked to people who've done the play tests here and all that, like user research people. How much, like, when a play test is done, do you like get that feedback directly from them? Like, are you one of the people who like receives those play test reports to help you, better improve the mission, or?
It depends. Sometimes, if you're looking specifically at a mission that you're working on, it's best to be in the room. If possible, and just be an observer, see where players are struggling with direction, if they don't understand what they need to do next, or sometimes there's just bugs, of course, early on in development. But it's amazing to me how something that in your mind is blatantly obvious, that people will spin around and not notice, or they will try something, like you say, jump up on top of this thing, and so they'll spend 10 minutes trying to push a box over to jump on top of that because they don't know they can double jump, or they don't know that they can do this. But it's invaluable in the sense that for every person that's going to do that in front of you, there's going to be n number more people that are going to do that, and they're not going to have anyone to be there to help them. So it's hard because you want to help, but you can't. Because one of the jokes you hear in the industry, someone says, well, we can't ship you with the game to explain how to make it work. So you have to solve that problem as much as you can before you get there.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, you try to, it's a good idea to try to, leave as much freedom for the player as possible. Has there ever been a time where you've seen a playtester do something you never expected, but you liked it, and you like built around that, or like decided to keep it in?
Unfortunately, nothing comes off the top of my head right now. I've seen the opposite of that, where people do things like, "Ooh, I need to stop that from happening."
Yeah, like I figure it's probably like a rare occurrence, but like I have heard like there've been some times where it's just like I know stories of like other games where it's like, oh, that was a bug, or oh, this player did this thing that was so weird, even though it was like glitchy, that we try to implement it as like a thing.
Well, in the past, I was more on content.
Yeah.
So I was doing missions specifically, and even in Agents of Mayhem, I was system/content hybrid, working on the system but also making the objectives. So I think working more in the system side, that's something I will hopefully see and embrace more.
Okay. Just as a side note, just because I was trying to think of an example of that. Apparently, the Devil May Cry games, in the original one, like you could, if an enemy was in the air and you shot them with your guns a bunch, they would just stay in the air as long as you shot them. That was apparently a bug they thought was cool, just left in.
That was a cool bug. I'm glad they left it in.
But yeah, we have one more thing to get to here, and that is we have one of the things he worked on. If I can switch over to the damn thing. So here's an interesting thing. This like console that you worked on, we have it running right now because it's an older thing. What year was this? Like 2005, 4, 5, something
around
like that?
there. I don't remember the exact year. I only saw it in the stores once.
Okay.
So and it's a very niche product.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. Obviously, we use wireless mice to control everything here. It'd be awful to have 40 feet mice cables everywhere. So this system we're going to switch to in a second. It has an infrared. It's infrared, right? It's like an IR.
Visual and infrared, I think so.
Yeah. It's got this camera, and the IR from this thing is screwing up all of the wireless mice here. Generally, our Mike, who's in the control room, is the one who controls all this stuff, so I can focus on just talking to our guests. But it was like over at his desk, the mouse didn't work at all. So I brought it over here, and it was working fine now. Now it doesn't. So thankfully, I have a keyboard to set some of this stuff up. But still, if we want to hear sound for this thing, we're gonna have to I'm going to have to be able to click on stuff. But yeah, how about you talk about what this thing is that we're going to play?
So the Hasbro Ion is a small video game system that Hasbro made that was using the iToy technology, essentially. I believe the parent company that made the iToy for the PlayStation 2 was the same parent company that had the tech for that. And it was right about the time when the iToy was becoming a little popular, and the idea of having kids be active when playing video games, because of course not most, but some parents feel that video games and children just lead to a sedentary lifestyle. So, hey, activity, playing around, messing around, that was a great idea. And they also wanted to really focus on edutainment.
Right.
A lot of the games in the system that we were working on had a very educational basis. In fact, on the 4 games I worked on, all of them were some form of math or color or puzzle solving skills, basic puzzle solving skills. I worked on a Transformers game, a Batman game, a Wiggles game, and a Bob the Builder game.
Oh man!
So, quite a range. And when these projects actually came to us, they had been, I don't want to say pre-designed, but the initial design was made by actually a group of educators. So it was very focused on making it educational first and fun, maybe.
Yeah.
And with the system, the limitations of the system, it was very difficult to get much of anything to happen there. But we would take the ideas that the educators came up with and then try and massage them into keeping the basic idea of, okay, so you want to teach math, how can we change this around a bit to work? And you were then dealing with the education side of it, but also the license holders' rules of how every visual had to look, for Transformers or Batman, or even the Wiggles, and they had their rules. But the system is so underpowered that sometimes you just had to get as close as you could and call it good for the day.
And you know what? I'm actually going to put up between us here. I'm going to bring up an image of what this system looks like. So I took this picture. This is literally your personal.
Yes.
So, is this a final version of the console, or is this?
This I believe is the final version of the console. The version I worked on at work actually had a separate camera, similar to an iToy that we would test with. But this one I did get. It's like the final version, but it is a prototype that I got from work, because once we were done with these projects, we were done with these projects. We weren't going to be working on them anymore. And they said, as a consolation prize, you can have this console and take it home.
Oh, geez. Yeah, because I noticed that there's like some sticker on it with like a bunch of stuff written that was like it was being used as a test unit or something like that.
Yes, I think we got this in late in development to make sure that it would work with the retail kits.
Yeah. Also, something that's crazy, I changed the batteries in this thing. I hit it. This mouse worked earlier, and now it's just like...
Not working at all.
I mean, I can still control like switching over. It's just I won't be able to turn the sound on the damn thing unless I can deal with this mouse here.
We can survive without the sound, but it would it would be nice if people heard it.
Yeah, if we don't have the sound, we're not going to be able to hear SpongeBob SquarePants.
That's true.
Yell at us.
That's
or
true.
Mr. Krabs mispronounced tomato. He says it tomato. What is that? Oh man. Anyways, let's switch over to just for a second here. Actually, could you go so here's the thing. There's no controller for this. So I need you to back up to like the main screen.
Let's get back there.
So another thing I should say is this is a very old thing that also capturing old stuff like this that sends out weird video signals, a difficult thing. So while we will be able to capture it, there will be times where when we're switching between screens or between games, it's gonna like dip to black for a couple seconds at a time, and that's just the nature of capturing something like this that like just sends weird video signals that aren't entirely consistent.
This is not going back. Let's see.
Oh, you could just reset it.
Reset.
Yeah.
And we'll skip through the FMV.
I love that there's no like remote or anything for doing this
Oh,
stuff.
no, not at all.
You just
It's
have to
all
walk
hand
up.
wavy or touch the big buttons up there.
Yeah.
It's like a glorified, a big CD player, which is really what it is. Developing for it was
Switch over and show like the loading screens.
Yeah. Here's a loading screen. It's going to cut to black and get really weird because, so it plays like this little video in a second, and the video is going to be real messed up looking. It's going to be flickering and like flipping all over the screen. It's going to look awful.
We'll skip past that.
Yeah, we can skip that. But yeah, you've told me in the past about the loading times for this thing.
Yeah, there is no streaming on it. I believe we can skip past this.
I thought you skipped past it earlier. Anyway,
There we go. Okay.
it takes a second.
Yeah, there's no. They went with some inexpensive components. This needless to say, and so it has no ability to stream. So you would either loading or you were playing the game.
Yeah.
So anytime you see a video, it'll load, play the video, and then load again. So I guess which one do we play?
Oh man, I gotta say I've tried all these, and I have to say the one that's like the best game out of all these is the SpongeBob one.
Okay. See if we can get it to work here.
Yeah, you gotta like
There we
you have to
go.
like rub it. You have to like continuously rub it.
Yep, it's motion. It doesn't care about anything other than changes in colors
Yeah.
and how fast you're moving. This was an interesting one to test with children because we would bring kids in to test, and they would consistently walk up to the television screen and try and touch it on the television screen, thinking it was essentially a gigantic touch screen, which was really prior to touch screens, which was odd. But I guess that idea of having a touch screen was an early concept for the kids. But a lot of them would struggle with that idea.
Yeah.
So if we can't get the audio, we're going to be making some Krabby Patties.
Well, he shows you like they say like with text on the screen which
Okay.
ones you need to get. I just wish I'll continue to try and get this mouse working because I really want to hear Mr. Krabs say tomato.
Do you want me to try?
Yeah, let's here. I'll go.
Right. We'll start easy, just to start with it. Okay. I try and sit there. So I need to grab or get the correct item from the list. So this one was teaching you objects and colors, and okay. Cheese, jelly, and I think that's lettuce.
Lettuce.
I don't think that's a pickle.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Maybe it's a jalapeno.
I'm gonna go cut across you here. Also, I enjoy using this thing, having this up because you get to see what our set looks like when we're not, we just got this big green screen in the back wall here.
Okay. So he's teaching me how to play.
So you didn't work in the SpongeBob one, correct?
I did not. None of the titles. I think the Batman one that I worked on is the only one that was released.
Okay.
The other four I have never seen. In fact, I only saw the system itself once. I was going through a Walmart. It had just shipped, and I thought, hey, I'll pick that up next time I go by and see it. And next time, well, there was no next time.
Yeah.
So I missed that opportunity, unfortunately. Let's see. What do we? Oh, am I the robot?
No, you are SpongeBob.
I am. Seems to be playing it. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, it does like a really long demo where I also thought like I was screwing up, but it's just like playing itself, showing
Could
you
skip
how.
this, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, we could go ahead and
Yeah.
skip. Maybe.
Unless this is a thing, and so you can probably attest to this, but the camera on this thing wasn't the greatest at sensing.
Yes, it was not that good.
Yeah, it like as I was testing, making sure we could even capture video from this, I noticed just like leaving it to its own devices, it would just like
It would play.
it would just see like something.
So cucumbers or pickles, potato, and ketchup. So don't move. Let's see. That's not right. For some reason.
Another thing this game asks for is like an ingredient that I
Okay,
think is
got that
weird is sprouts. Who wants sprouts on their burger?
It seems to be playing by itself right now.
Yeah.
Really fast.
I mean, it totally worked when you selected like the
round 2.
Whoa.
Well, I won.
Maybe you have to
Or-
wave your hands faster. I noticed that sometimes if you like had even faster like motion in your hands, that it would kind of like
It would default to that, so it's not going to do. So
yeah, it would like take
there we
you
go.
as
I
priority.
need more time
Yeah.
if I grab that one. I don't. What was on? I didn't even remember what was on the list. Okay, so yeah, this is fun.
Oh man.
Potato, tofu,
That's-
and sprouts.
Sprouts, yeah. Also tofu in a burger. I mean,
Hey,
it's a
tofu?
thing, but
Yeah. So, I did not pick that.
damn.
Not jelly. He's got the tofu, so I think he's in the lead right now. It keeps showing me what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm running out of time because
Also, we have a question from the Rogue Sky asking, what are the specs of this magical thing?
I believe it has RAM. That I don't know for sure. It has, of course, no hard drive. So it's a small CD. Is that what the disc came on? Maybe a 3-speed CD-ROM. I don't know.
Oh, man.
The specs are simply put. The specs are abysmal. Working on it was akin to maybe a flash game
Yeah.
with less power than that. I mean, as you can see, it was. Most of the processing went into just the somewhat adequate motion control, and we did a lot of testing in different rooms to try and make stuff work correctly, but it was always a crapshoot as to whether or not it would work in any space. This game is definitely playing itself.
Yeah.
Nothing happened there.
Nothing happened that time. What if you reach for something? Hey, you
we
got
go.
it.
Okay.
There you go.
Maybe it's actually playing right now. That whole thing was so I have the potato. Now I need ketchup and tomato, or mustard and tomato. Sorry, I know my colors. Apparently, I
shit.
wanted those.
Mike just had a great idea. It's probably picking me up because I'm over here moving. My
Yes.
head's right below. I keep
I guess I
talking
could
with my
turn it a bit
hands.
if you want me to.
I'll be very still. We could also turn it, yeah.
Turn it.
Oh, God.
Never mind.
Oh, no. What have we done?
The inputs. Is it on fire right now?
Give it a second. It might just be resyncing. Yep,
Oh.
it's back.
Okay.
And Mr. Krabs is here to scold us at being bad at making Krabby Patties.
Oh well.
Sorry, Mr. Krabs.
I apologize.
Something that surprised me though is like they got like original VO from the cast members of the shows to do stuff for these games. I think it
I
seems
would say
original.
that there's VO from the cast members, but I don't know that they were doing.
You don't
them
know if it was-
specifically for us. I think
Okay.
in multiple instances they were taking clips from the shows,
Okay.
and just splicing that in, because I remember on the Batman game, we were basically given the video clips, the intro and outro of each section,
Yeah.
and we had no control over that.
Oh, we just
Went back.
you were
Yep,
gesturing near the arrow.
That's the problem. We had no control over actually what it was, what they said. It was only the game sections in between.
Yeah.
So we could do Lazytown, Dora, or Blues Room.
I want to see. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
ask the chat actually. Chat, which one of these other Nickelodeon properties do you want to see? Three of them Nick Jr. and only one actual Nickelodeon. Interesting. I mean, I guess it's because they were aiming probably for the younger children, like probably like
Yeah.
what age range of kid? I'm guessing it was like 4 to like 8.
Yeah, it was elementary school kids.
Okay.
The Batman one was supposed to be a little bit older, and the Transformers 2, but it was still elementary school kids. It was basic math. I don't think we ever got above like two-digit addition.
Yeah.
Lazytown. Okay, yeah.
Lazytown with Dora, close second.
Lazytown is more of a just play the game. They did have some for the like preschool kids that were just, hey, colors, sounds, play,
Yeah.
and sort of have fun with just like Have you played? There's the Kinect game that came out that Double Fine did. That was like a series of toy rooms.
Oh,
essentially.
yeah, I have played that a little. Yeah, I
It
like
was
that thing.
Similar to that. My daughters love that game, and I apologize for not remembering the name of it right
Yeah,
now.
I totally remember what you're talking about, though.
But some of the games were like that, so the kids could just hit balloons and play around.
Oh, God, another messed up video. Let's skip.
Past that.
And I've tested that thing on... I like that it just turned into a question mark on our stream there. That's funny.
We're doing questionable activities here.
I would say it's questionable. I'm not surprised Chet picked Lazytown, because that's probably the most memey one on the internet still.
So we are going to play some intense volleyball.
Yes!
We'll see if I can do this with my head the whole time.
Oh, man.
Okay.
All right.
Yay!
Hey, it's working. All right.
All right.
It probably helps that I'm no longer in the damn frame. Hey, this one works.
Yes.
You know what? This is pretty responsive. I'm genuinely impressed with this one.
This one had some high-level coding. Oh! Looks like I've got... All right.
Man. I
don't
wish I
think
could remember
this will
his
be
name.
Top 13.
I don't remember the names of any of the characters in Lazytown. Man, fucking
gave up a little early.
wrecking him.
It looks like there might be some cheating involved.
Oh, wow.
Whoa!
What?
Oh, got to save though.
That was like a super. This is like a
Yes.
this is like a spiritual successor to Windjammers. Have you ever played Windjammers?
I have not.
I'm gonna make everybody in the studio play Windjammers at some point.
I've heard about it. I remember hearing on a podcast. I believe it was Jared Petty talking about it a lot.
It's an arcade game, top down. It's like extreme anime frisbee rules. You do like fighting game inputs, and you throw your frisbee, and it's like on fire, and it just like hugs the wall, like goes in the person's goal behind them. It's so good.
That reminds me, when we were, one of the projects I worked on the DS was the Jackass game, which was a fun title to work on.
That's fun.
We made a bunch of mini games. Now I'm not even
man.
playing. I'm sorry. We made a bunch of mini games in that, and one of them was a volleyball mini game, which was a lot of fun to work on. And each of the different characters had their own abilities.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was definitely a challenge. That game was the game where I think I learned one of my biggest lessons in game design, and that is the idea that something that sounds great on paper and in your mind
Right.
may not work at all. One of the mini game ideas we had was a taxi game where you were in charge of whoa, he's just cheating all over the place.
Man.
The goal was that you had to stay on top of this taxi and basically surf on the car. And the DS was still somewhat new, and so we wanted to use some of the technology of the DS. And I thought, I know, when you fall off the vehicle, why don't we require the player to yell into their microphone to get back up on the car?
Right.
And I thought that would be cool because it's energetic. Plus, it's sort of playing with the player. We want, at some level on that project, we wanted to be sort of a jerk to the players.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, when people are playing in public, if they want to play this mini game, they're gonna have to yell in their DS.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna want to, so they're gonna fall. It was a horrible idea.
Oh, man.
Absolutely horrible idea. You could just tap on the microphone to completely skip that, and no one liked it. And I agree that it was a bad idea.
Yeah, I feel like there are some other DS games that totally have like some type of microphone gimmick, like single player things. What was it? So there was in The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, I think, in the DS. Your instrument, like the ocarina from Ocarina of Time, was like a flute or something, and you had to blow into the microphone to play it. And I remember people having frustrations because it was too finicky, because you had to play like different notes just by blowing into the. But Yeah, I remember there was some other games I played where it was like a puzzle game where there was one instance of having to use the mic, and it's just like, yeah, you would just blow into it instead of doing what they wanted you to, because it would still register.
Yeah, it was really just most developers just went ahead and used volume. There was no, they didn't really care what the sound was, as long as there was some amount of volume, they counted as good. And so that to me was my first experience in your idea is really bad. And you, as a designer, you have a lot of bad ideas. And hopefully people can tell you early enough that that's a bad idea. Let's maybe there's a nugget of a good idea in there that we can improve on, but that is probably not the way we want to go.
Right. Also, Mike was saying, because I can't turn his damn mic on, Mike says, always impressed when a dev can talk and play a game at the same time. It's tough.
This is a tough game. I was doing high-level volleyball against someone who was cheating.
Another video. Let's skip it.
Let's skip that.
But I want that to be at EVO, that tennis game. Not like an official thing, just like room matches with real money on the line.
Let's see, can we go back? It's not going to detect that for some reason. It'll detect
what the
nothing,
hell?
But it won't detect that.
What the hell? Oh, it was picking up.
Oh, no. Let's
man. Good
and
Lord.
Then it picks that one. So I guess, do you want me to just do a reset?
Yeah, let's reset. We'll check out maybe one more game before we call it quits here. But
so while we're waiting for this to load, when I was working on Jackass, do you remember there was a bug in Gran Turismo 2 where in one of the early versions of the game, you couldn't get 100%. You couldn't 100% the game because there was an item that you either didn't count towards the percentage or you couldn't unlock it.
Right.
And I remember hearing about that, and I thought, well, as the final sort of messing with the player in this game, what I wanted to do was make it so that even if you did everything in the game, you would only get 99%.
Oh, jeez.
And so no matter what, 100% of the game was really 99%, but for the people who were very OCD and wanted to get that 100%, which honestly was maybe 2 people in the nation of that, that actually played that game and got 100%, that would be it. And I had a programmer that I was working with, a great programmer, and he just hated the idea. And I think it was because of that idea. And right up until, almost the last milestone, that's the way the game was that you could only get 99%. And he just one day just made an executive decision as a programmer and just changed it and said, nope, you get to 100%.
I know there are a few games that do something similar to that. I don't know if it was... No, I remember... also, our capture device is no longer picking this thing up. It's frozen on the Lazytown game. Probably because this thing is old and weird.
Figure out.
Yeah, we'll see if it resets itself. But we might have to call it quits there, maybe. But... I think it was an old Xbox 360 game, near launch, that was called Bullet Witch. Did a similar thing, but it was with achievement points.
Okay.
I think there was one achievement that was either extremely hard to get or impossible to get, and it was worth 1 point. So you would get 999 achievement points, and you could never get 1,000. Yeah, that was rough.
As an achievement hunter myself, that would frustrate me to no end.
Yeah. Are you still an achievement hunter? Did you have a phase when you did that?
I play a ton of games. I'm over 200,000. But that's mostly because I just play a ton of games.
200,000 gamer score?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Compared to the actual achievement hunters, I'm far
Yeah, some
down
dude
on the
broke
list.
1 million a year or two ago, right?
Yeah. I think some of them are upwards of 2 million now.
Wow.
I don't have the ability or time to do that. But yeah. So I can look it up if you really want me to look at the exact total.
I mean, if you could look it up on your phone real quick, I'm curious how many what your gamer score
What
is.
is my current gamer score?
I feel like I played a decent amount of stuff on the 360, and my gamer score is only somewhere at 15 or 16,000.
Let's see if it's opening up.
Did you explicitly make sure to even if something was? Did you have a PS3 at the same time too, or were you just Xbox?
I've had a PS3 the whole time, but I just play more Xbox.
Okay.
No real maybe
You didn't go out of your way,
preference. I didn't go out of my way. No.
Okay.
I'm at 231,375.
Man.
So, I've played a couple games over the years, and there's certain games that I'll try in 100%.
Yeah.
But I don't always have the time or the desire to, depending on the game.
Right. Were you ever like going out of your way to get games that had easy achievements, or are all these points like just earnest just from playing games normally?
Outside of very early on in the 360, there was an NBA game where I got all 1,000 achievements in the first quarter of the game.
I remember
backed out.
Yeah, I remember some early Xbox 360 games had like 5 achievements total, maybe.
Yeah, that was one of them. Outside of those, I haven't really. There's been some games like, I'll go for it if it seems like it's a little bit easy, but I never purchased a game just to do that.
Okay.
Mostly because I'll purchase a game to play it and then find out along the way that it does. But when I'm looking and buying games, it's either a game that I really want to play for myself or that I feel like has value for me as a designer to look at how they approach the concept or a challenging design concept.
Okay. Man, I'm trying to think. I think I only have 16,000. I played a decent amount of 360 games, I felt. But yeah, I guess before we wrap up, also it looks like we might be getting another question in the chat in a second. Huh? Oh, okay. I want to ask you before we wrap up. So we've talked on several different streams in the past couple of weeks with different developers. We can't really say anything about it, but we are working on a new game.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say much else but that. But I do want to ask you, what are your feelings about the new game we're working on?
I'm really excited. Like I said in the past, I worked on more content, like missions and things like that. Currently, I'm working on controls and cameras, so what we call systems design, and I'm having a blast. It's always fun to. I personally view game design almost like playing games where you are puzzle solving. You have a challenge, you have a goal, you want to do something in the game, or have an ability, give the player an ability, or give the player a challenge to do. It's really fun to have be on the system side now and say, how do I enable the player to do something fun? Mm-hmm. And make that be something that they're going to want to continue to do. It's different now because in missions, my goal is to make something big and exciting and in your face. And now, if I feel like if I do my job really well, you almost won't notice it because it'll just feel right. The camera will be good, the controls will be good. As you are playing the game, it'll just feel right. And hopefully, I'm shooting for that. I want it to be as fun as possible. But I love working on the game. I'm excited to play it, and I'm excited to. I can't wait to be able to talk about it
one day
in a specific in specifics. Like I'm sure everyone here is. I'm really excited. I know the fans of Volition will be excited too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for being on, man. I'm really glad we were finally able to show off like the Ion, because it was like when I during that period where I wasn't working here, you gave me the Ion and I got too busy, but I almost like showed it off on my own YouTube channel. But I'm glad we were able to do it here. But yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And thanks everybody on the internet for watching our stream. We stream every week on Thursdays, 5 Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. We do a bunch of different stuff. We do stuff like this. Sometimes we'll just play a game just for the hell of it. We haven't done one yet since we restarted our streams as a Stream 2.0, but sometimes we do like break the build stuff where we go back, look at old builds of our earlier games and break them, see what makes them tick and all that. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Josh Stinson, the video editor here. Today we had
Damien Allen, principal designer here.
And we also had Mike Watson, our community guy, on. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, thanks for watching.
And yeah, we will see you next week with some more stuff. Later, guys.